The media is powerful. The media has power to do anything to effect change. So we need people in the media to wake up. Special education courses should not be an optional course. It should be a compulsory course.
Certain children have special needs and you have to treat each child different. That is why people sought for the private school, because they have lesser children in school, in classrooms, whereby the teacher can actually monitor, because that's the duty for you to know each child's needs, specific needs, and be able to address that need. It's not just about providing infrastructure in place, it's also about training these teachers and having policies, creating policies that will guide schools.
Talking about inclusion in the classroom, resources must be in place. Otherwise, we would only talk about inclusion and nothing will be done.
No child left behind. Rethinking inclusion in Africa classroom actually speaks to a fundamental shift from the traditional the one-size-fits-all model and approach to education, toward a model that recognizes and supports the diverse learning needs of all children, including those with disabilities, neurodivergence, or socioeconomic disadvantage. It challenges educators, governments, parents, and policymakers to ensure that every child, regardless of ability, background, or learning style, is seen, supported, and set up to thrive. We have a prominent guest, Chukwum Nonso Omifenwa. He's an educator, narrative education advocate, and author with nearly 15 years of experience in African classrooms. She is widely known for her passionate work promoting inclusive and culturally relevant learning systems across the continent of Africa, across Nigeria. And as a parent to a young boy on the autism spectrum, Chukwum Nonso brings a powerful blend of personal insight and professional expertise into her advocacy. She works closely with parents, teachers, and educators, policymakers to challenge outdated norms and rethink what success means in schools today. Chukwum Nonso will be joining us on the program in a bit. She is standing by. I know about that. But before she actually joins us on the program, you mentioned something very, very fundamental. Special needs, special children requiring special attentions, which most of the time public schools cannot provide. Or most of the times, it's not that the public schools cannot provide, but they do not have systems in place that could cater to the specific and peculiar needs of these special children, because we can't begin to talk about autism and children who have dyslexia, autism, and how special they are. Now, the thing about special when it comes to education, does not only apply in the education sector. There was a time the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the International Labour Organization was actually looking at member states and was trying to propose solutions to people with special needs, to the extent that they started discussing with governments of each country that, look, if you're building bridges, pedestrian bridge, don't just build bridges for people who can walk across. People use wheelchair. There should be a specific part for some of the people who use wheelchair to be able to access a pedestrian bridge, because obviously they cannot cross the road if they're on the wheelchair. You go to hospitals, most especially you see that in Nigeria and in Lagos. You see there's and other times in higher education learning environment, you see the staircase where people can easily access. Then there are other places as well where you could see a slopey area that people who can't walk, can wheelchair ramp, can access easily. And that is inclusiveness that we are talking about. But in today's conversation, we are taking it to the classroom, and we have Chukwum Nonso Omifenwa joins us on the program this afternoon on Just Africa. Welcome to the program, Chukwum Omifenwa.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Let me not only welcome you to the program, I guess you've been hearing us talk about these children with special needs, and sometimes that specific name, children with special needs, special education, peculiar students, peculiar people. It sounds somewhat ambiguous. So could you please throw some light into it so that we can inform and educate our listeners and our viewers?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chukunum Somi Fenwa. Special children are just basically children that uh, have a different kind of neurological makeup. So it's diverse. You have those with disability, you have those with learning needs, you have those with even gifted children are actually called special children. But in this part of the world, we don't recognize that. So they're just children that have um, different neurological developments. They are not all of them. We don't consider them as sick children. We don't consider them as abnormal. They just are different. That's just the word. They're different from other children. Hence the term special children. So it then implies that they require special care. They require special education. So that's just the simple definition of special education, special children. They're children that, for the way they were, some of them, the way they were born. So we have those with disability, we have those with learning challenges, we have those with physical. Those ones are very glaring physical disability. That's what makes them special.
So when we talk about no child is left behind and rethinking inclusion in the classroom, in education, not only in Nigeria, including other African countries, what exactly do you mean, or what exactly does it mean, inclusive education, where we need to bring these special needs children on board who do not, have the same abilities, or who have some challenges? How can we bring them into the conventional education space where they're learning in the midst of everyone? How possible is that? Or do we suggest creating a different environment, the same classroom or special schools, special education center for that purpose?
Okay, so the question I always like to ask is, these children, will they grow up in a unique society exclusively for them? And the answer is no. They're going to grow up in a society that is inclusive of everybody. They don't have a different world. They are not going to attend a different kind of university that's exclusively for special needs children. They're not going to attend a different kind of mosque or church. So if they are living in the world where everyone is living, then they should be educated alongside everyone. I'm not an advocate for special schools because they would not function in a society outside of the school. They need to be integrated into the learning systems, into the learning structures of the country. Now, these things are actually quite difficult because if you take, for example, Nigeria as a country, I know we're talking about Africa, but if we look at Nigeria as a country, Nigeria has the second highest number of out of school children globally, about almost 20 million. Nigeria's budget for education is low. 5% of the total budget goes to education. UNESCO recommends 15 to 20%. Nigerian teachers are not formally trained. So having children, special needs children, in a system where other children are is the only way we can help them thrive in a society. They're not going to go when they go to watch football in a stadium. There's no stadium that is exclusively for special needs children. They're going to go to the markets. They're going to pass by bus stops. They're going to jump on buses. And the world, unfortunately, is cruel. The people don't understand empathy. So the earlier they get immersed in a society, the better for them. I'm speaking this way, and I feel I'm qualified because I am an educator. I'm a mom. And most importantly, I'm a mom to a special needs child. But even before I became a mom to a special needs child, this is something that we learned in education, the need for inclusion. There's always an argument of whether they should be in an inclusive school or not. And my answer is always they are going to live in an inclusive environment. So the earlier they are in an inclusive school, the better for them and the better for the society at large too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thoughtful answer. Now, I like to also look at it from this other angle. Now, integrating them back into the society, putting them in schools along with other normal children so that they can relate better. But if you look at some of these public schools, now, for instance, I attended Government College Lagos. Back then, we were about 70 going to 100 in a classroom, and then you rarely see your teacher even in a day. You might probably see your teacher maybe twice a week because it's over there in the teacher's teacher's office and all that. So, and most parents prefer taking their child to private schools where you have lesser students in the classroom so that the teacher can actually focus on each child, let alone a child with special need. So how do we even begin to rectify this, the population of students in a classroom? Then again, looking at the teacher themselves, how many of them are well equipped? Should we even make it a compulsory requirement for some of these teachers to study psychology, to study some certain courses, so that they will be well equipped to handle all types of children?
Okay, thank you, sir. What I'm about to say is debatable, but I stand by what I'm going to say. I believe that um, NCE, that is College of Education, offers better training for teachers than University of Education, than faculties, departments in faculties of education in university. I say this because I went to a College of Education before I proceeded to University of Lagos for my degree. And during my college days, we had courses in special education, which we didn't take any course in special education during my university days. Now imagine if every teacher, and I mean qualified teachers, please, imagine if every person that graduates from a university or anybody that has a teaching degree already has some background knowledge in special education. Imagine the difference it will make. So I think I'm taking it from your last question. For teacher training, I think it's important to ensure that it's part of the course content for your 4-year program in the university or any university. As long as you're studying education, you should learn about special education. It's important. I There's so many courses I took in my college days. I attended Taisho College of Education. There are so many courses I took that were very extensive and gave me, in fact, that was what even built my love for teaching. And getting into the university, I was expecting more. I was expecting more wholesome courses, like courses on comparative education, all of that, that will give you a leverage, that will make you learn, that will make you even hungry for knowledge, understanding the education world. So I think that first of all, for course content in the universities, special education courses should not be an optional course. It should be compulsory. It should be a compulsory course. So when teachers have that basic training, it makes a lot of difference, whether they're teachers in the public school or the private sector. Now, for the public schools, I attended a public secondary school too, and I sincerely cannot remember if we ever had any special needs child. I don't remember, honestly. But the problem with public schools is not something that we can change with this conversation. That's why I laid the foundation of it's a Nigerian problem, it's a Nigerian education problem. Unfortunately, no matter how much we have this discussion, the the ball still stops on the desk of the government. If they do nothing, we will get little results. However, there's something that everyone has, which is empathy. As a teacher, even if you don't know anything about special education, if you have empathy, you can lead your class right. You can help your learners. My son, who's a special needs child, permit me to cite to share this experience. So he was attending a particular school, and we had to withdraw him from that school because he was not well taken care of. And we started looking for a school. I know that this is a struggle that so many parents go through. We started searching for a school. It was taking so long. We were going, and the number one question I ask when my husband and I get to a school is, "Do you have provision for special needs child?" And the response we get is either they're confused, they have no idea, or some will truthfully say no. And I'm wondering, this is an education, and I'm not talking about small schools. Why would you not have provision for special needs children? Eventually, we settled for this school. They did not have any special needs child in this school, but we felt at peace. And he did so well. His result was outstanding. And that's because the teachers were willing to learn. So there's a teacher training challenge which the government needs to look into. Making special education courses compulsory. It's just basic special education course. It's not complicated. What it entails, types of special education, how to help them, the ones with learning disabilities, the ones with that's just what the course is all about. That is number one. Number two, there's the role that the stakeholders play in all of this. Not everyone can afford to go to a private school. We talked about government school. There was a government school in Ijebode. I That was where I had I used the school for my project. Yeah, that was the school I used for my project during my NC days. And this school is actually a special education, is a special school. All the children there are special. Now I spent 3 months there on the studying, researching because I was writing about learning disabilities. And I realized while conversing with the teachers and all, they were in fact they were not underpaid. They had not been paid for months, so they were practically just coming to work because they didn't want to lose their jobs. And then they didn't have resources. So you have a classroom where you have students with diverse special needs, but you don't have the resources to teach them. So what are you going to do as a teacher? How long will you keep using your own resources? So the teachers that have empathy or that are passionate about the job might once in a while use their resources. The others will just make do with what they have. So we have little or no control over what the government is supposed to do. That's why I will say, as a teacher, get the training. As a parent, there are things you can do at home because if we wait on the government, we'll get nothing done. As a society,
Interrupt you. Let me come in here. Sorry to butt in because I need you to touch a whole number of places before we leave. So now you've mentioned some of these schools and how some of them are, severely lacking when it comes to the special needs that the special needs children will need to have, the training, the personnel requirement. What about laying down infrastructure for the special needs children, children with autism? And how were you able to navigate, where teaching by mixing both special needs children with conventional children in your own teaching experience? We would like you to share more or more of those experiences, and also the infrastructure that needs to be put in place by both private and government enterprise into education so that it can cater to the needs of the special needs students.
okay, sir. So as a teacher, I don't teach within the four walls of a classroom anymore. I teach remotely. But when I was teaching, there's something we call the UDL, that's Universal Design for Learning. And what it simply means is that planning your lessons in a way that can accommodate all types of learners. So you have multiple ways of learning, seeing, hearing, doing. So if you're teaching a concept, ensure that you're using different techniques so that everyone can be carried along. You have making sure that your children are understanding what you're teaching, not just tests. So not just the written test, asking questions, slowing down, interacting, assigning students that you know that they seem to be doing better than others. You could assigning them responsibility of helping the others. There's a different touch he has when a student is assisting his or her friend than when the teacher is doing it. There's also the aspect of stay motivated and staying motivated and being engaged. Excuse me, please. And so, what I do in the classroom is to ensure that first off, everybody would explain what they understand by the topic. So I'm not coming. I start teaching by facilitating. Facilitating is just controlling the conversation. So I'm not controlling the class. I'm just um, allowing the children in quotes teach. So they express themselves, whether they are right or wrong, allow them express themselves. If, for example, I'm teaching them figures of speech, I could just list everything on the board and ask them, so what do you think metaphor is? Allow them express themselves. No one is right or wrong. Then after they have expressed themselves, I now build on that. Okay, Taiwo said this. What do we think is the difference between irony and simile? We use a lot of instructional materials, use lots of audio visuals. I know that is tough or almost impossible in some classes, but it's something that is achievable. Prepare before the class, you have printed out everything that you want to use. If there's a projector in the class, you've gotten enough videos, short videos that can explain this thing. Maybe songs on these things that can make it more explanatory, that can make it fun. So you are playing a 3 minutes video on the board on the projector for them that is about figures of speech. That one has its own effects. Then you have printed out or use sticky notes or flashcards and you plan a game in class that can allow some of these things stick. Then you could also do an activity in class that would involve them. For example, I could divide the class into 6 groups and say, okay, you are going to be group A. Group A is irony. Group B is hyperbole. Group C is personification. This is what you would do. Getting them involved in the teaching process, in the teaching and learning process, it makes a whole lot of difference. That way, every child is covered. So i- whether it's the games we use, whether it's the flashcards we use, whether it's the group activity we use, every child is covered.
All right, thank you very much, Chino. So one of the major factors contributing to this education exclusion for children with special need is stigmatization. It's still rampant in Nigeria. I remember when we were young, we had a friend who had a sibling with special need, but whenever we go to his house, we don't get to see his brother. He's kept somewhere, and the only time you get to see him is when he comes to, take his dinner or lunch and all that. So there's still that stigmatization there. So how can we, or what role basically can grassroots advocacy, led by, of course, parents of children with disabilities and disability advocates, what role can grassroots advocacy do in taking away these cultural biases?
Answering this question, it makes me emotional because I talk about my son a lot on my WhatsApp status, and sometimes people question why I do that. Ever since we knew about his diagnosis, which was about 3 years ago, I talk about it openly and I'm trying to create awareness. And I'm happy because of what I do, I write about him a lot. I write about the experience of being a special needs mom. I share my journey and I encourage people to take that first step of getting their child diagnosed, to know what the needs are and to get help. But I think that parents have to brace up. That's the truth. I'm a parent and I had to wake up. It's like um it's I don't know how to explain it. I When I first knew that my son was on the spectrum, I lived in denial, and I think that every parent goes through that phase of living in denial before I eventually got convinced and took the step of taking him to the hospital. But parents, I had to break free from the stigmatization myself because I had to tell myself, how would it feel like knowing that I'm taking my son to a neuropsychiatric hospital? People don't understand what it means. People think that your child is mad. They don't know that it's just the hospital for the child to get help. So I think that parents, there's no better way to package this thing or to say this. If you know that your child has special needs, brace up. You enjoy the benefits on the long run. We need to openly talk about these things and not as a form of mockery or just talk about it for the fun of it, but to create awareness. I've had people call me from, I don't even know them, and they say, my friend sent me your number. Please, what hospital do you use for your son? And I'm happy I'm seeing all of these results because I braced up and I talk about it. People will tell me, don't say your son is autistic. I said, but that is who he is. So whether we feel stigmatized or not, that does not remove the fact that this child has special needs. So let's brace up and let's openly talk about these things. You never can tell where help will come from. People send me lots of resources. When they see an opportunity for maybe free materials or resources, people forward them to me on WhatsApp because I openly talk about this. That's for the parents. For other stakeholders, the media is powerful. The media has power to do anything to effect change. So we need people in the media to wake up. We need filmmakers. We need people that do animation to start talking about this thing, to shed more light, to educate people. Imagine someone producing a film that mirrors in on Down syndrome or dyslexia. And there's a lot of information. It might even be a 3 minute film. There are YouTube films. Um, all of this, people need to wake up and take advantage of all of the resources available. For the government, they know what to do. If they're not going to play their role, then it's okay with them. But for parents, we cannot live in denial forever. We need to wake up. We need to speak these things. We need to talk about them. There are organizations that are doing a lot for special children. GTB has been doing a lot. In fact, GTB Autism Fair was the first place we took our son to for him to be assessed before they referred us to the neuropsychiatric hospital. So there are lots of organizations that are doing a lot of things, throwing in more light, educating parents. Then we need to take this message to the rural areas. We need to do films in indigenous languages. We need to do all those stand-up comedians and all of them. These are things that they can also do. It won't cost them anything to do like a 2 minutes video, maybe in Yoruba language, to show how to care for a child with Down syndrome. And they, because they have they're popular, they're influencers, these things will spread. Imagine if one of these top influencer does something like that. Imagine how many people watching it and how much effect it will have. Because being in the city, you already have an advantage. You have resources, you have the internet, you have all of this. Some people in the rural area don't even have any of this. So bringing these things to the grassroots level, all the big organizations, some of the ones I even mentioned, making these things accessible in local dialects. If you print it.
So, if I may come in, sorry about that. If I may come in, one of the things I picked up from what you said is self-denial, which I want us to actually look at. A lot of parents, like you said you also went through that phase of self-denial. So I want you to share more so that others can learn. How did you come out of this self-denial? What can be done to bring parents out of this self-denial? What can the federal government, state government do to, because it is after you come out of that phase of self-denial that you can now decide, you can now start to seek help for that child.
Okay, for me, it was my friend. It was my best friend. She was even the person that spotted he was on the autism spectrum. We didn't know. We just assumed he was a very quiet child. And whenever she calls, she would tell us that, oh, this boy is not giving eye contact. Are you sure he's not on the spectrum? And she would ask questions. And I'm like, no, he's just quiet. He's just. So she kept pressing. She kept pressing. She kept pressing. And imagine, as literate as I am, I had no idea. So one day she called me and she said, would you rather leave this boy without help and later discover that, oh, he's on the spectrum, or you go for a diagnosis, they do a proper test and all, and they tell you he's not on the spectrum, he just has some developmental challenges. And she told me, she said, you have nothing to lose by taking this boy for a diagnosis. And my husband and I, we kept stalling, we kept stalling, we kept stalling, until one day she called me and she said, I'm saying this because it's for your own good. The earlier a child with special needs is checked, the better for the family. If this child grows older and has not been properly diagnosed and taken care of, you would not be at peace. You would not enjoy your home. There's going to be a lot of pressure on you. And we braced up one day to say, you know what, let's go. Let's take this step. Let's go. So we went to, it wasn't easy. It's never easy because that's not something a parent will want to hear. It's not easy. When we took the step and went to Patrick's Speech and Language Center, and I remember that day in the lobby, I was crying because I was like, is this my reality? But because I had a friend that kept pushing me, she kept pushing me and she said, you know what? I'm giving you a deadline. Before the end of this week, go to so and so place and get him checked. And that was the first step. After that, we didn't do anything until after the DTB Autism fair. So after all of that, it was time to begin taking him for therapy at the neuropsychiatric hospital. I kept saying to myself that, so my son is going to a psychiatric hospital? It felt very strange. It felt very. I remember the first time I was going there, I was actually crying on my way to the hospital because I couldn't believe that this is my new reality. But 3 years down the line, I am happy. I am fulfilled. He's here in the house, he's playing. He can articulate words. If you hear him speak, there's been so much improvement. So when I look back, I am happy I had a friend that pushed me. I'm happy I had family members that supported me, that would encourage me, that would ask me about his diet and what he's eating. I'm happy that I have family um that will ask me when he's coming to spend holiday, what are the things he shouldn't eat, all of that. Is the support that got me, that made me even take this step. So I imagine a literate parent not even wanting to be on that path, not because they don't love their child, but it's just the fear. There's so much fear. There's so much disappointment. You're wondering, there's guilt on the mom's part. That did I do anything wrong? Did I miss anything? Did I not when I was pregnant? All of that. There is that you're dealing with. But if you think about the long-term effects, do you want to have a 15-year-old that you are still wearing diaper for, or he's still pooing all over the house? Is that what you want? If you're
Madam Chinomso, Ms. Chinomso, sorry, just a moment. Thank you so much. Now, I think we are getting closer to where we need to wrap up the conversation with you, but there's one question I need you to also attend to before we leave. And that question had to do with something very, very significant that you mentioned whilst you were responding to the question that my colleague asked you. And that had to do with skills, potential, abilities. Most people think that the skills, the potential, the abilities belongs to the people with normal people, belongs to normal people who have everything. And one of the stigma against special needs people or children is that they are liabilities. Now, in your contact with these special issues, please tell us about the abilities that they possess, that normal people also possess. And the fact that they are special needs children does not actually deny them of having those abilities, which have been nurtured by education just the way it applied to normal people. Please tell us about that as we wrap up on the program.
Okay. Um, just like every normal child, not everyone has a special ability. The same thing with special needs children. Not all of them have that special ability. So I I don't I think that the label special needs makes people imagine or makes people assume that there's something wrong with them. There are so many things they cannot do. Um, Parents are the first nurturers, and it's in your daily contact with the child. It's in your if you're doing therapy, the things that you do daily, the what the speech therapy says, occupational therapy, what all of them teach you is in what you do daily. Now, when you're nurturing the skills, it's just like every other child. I like to think of them as every other child. I have two children. One has special needs. We don't give him preference. What the older one is able to do, we train him to do it too. We don't excuse, I don't know how to say it, we don't excuse some of these things. So the fact that a child has special needs, which is in fact, even autism itself is a range, does not mean that he or she is not able to do some special things. I don't even know what are these unique abilities. Some of them are trained, some of them don't come naturally. Some children are that you just find out that they read very well without little or no efforts. Naturally, they know how to read. Then we begin to nurture it. So the fact that they are special needs children does not mean they are in them, for lack of a better word, mumu. They cannot reason. They cannot be creative. In fact, this conversation we are having, there's a lot of last year alone. There's a lot of focus on special needs children that are doing exceptional things. And that's because they had people that nurtured these skills. That's why I'll always talk about the role of the parents. Because the school can do little or nothing. The child is living with you. Even if the child goes to school, the child is coming back home to you. Even if the child has a therapist, the child is still living in your house. So you as the parent, you are the one that have the major role to play in nurturing whatever skill it is that the child already has or that you want the child to have. I know is that these things are easy to say, but implementing is almost impossible, especially in low income communities. That's why I'm advocating for pushing this message out there. There is no skill that a child has that a special needs child cannot get. If they have the proper training, if they have the proper exposure, and if the parents are ready to play their parts.
Do you think the budget, the government of the country, either at the federal level or state level, should devote a special part of the education budget to cater to the needs of the special children? Do you think that's an argument that should be sustained and should be achieved in the long run?
I think so. I think so because if we are going to, if we are talking about inclusion in the classroom, resources must be in place. It means that we should consider having projectors in every classroom. And that cannot fly with our 5% budget. So even if it is not stated that the budget is being expanded for special education purpose, but it should. Otherwise, we would only talk about inclusion and nothing will be done. So if the budget is extended, all of these things we're talking about, even down to the kind of swings and stuff for playing in a school, all of these things, it will be reflected.
Chukwu Namso Omifenwa is an educator, narrative education advocate, and author with nearly 15 years of experience in African and Nigerian classrooms. She's widely known for a passionate network of promoting inclusive and culturally relevant learning systems across the country. Thank you so much. We really wish we could have spent the whole day with you and having this program, but please, thank you for having a robust conversation with us. But I also want to get your words on this. It's obvious rather that we are not done with this conversation. We are going to extend another invitation so we can have another conversation. I hope you're going to let us in. You're going to make yourself available.
Yes, I will, and I believe I'll be much better by then.
You did excellently well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time with us.
Thank you.
Wow, what
a touching,
quite a very touching
interview.
Sensitive conversation to have.
Yes, it's having had to share some of the experiences she had, especially self-denial, moving from self-denial to seek solution. I must commend Chukwu Nonso for that bravery, and I also commend those who are around her. And I think that's how we build a community. That's how a community is supposed to work. Having people not just advise you, but still continually advise you, continually tell you, do this, get this help, get this help. And I'm happy she was able to share her own story so that those listening at home, because according to reports in Africa, 1 out of 10 children have special needs and only 10% of them get access to education.